Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to the NUFC Monday show. We'll be talking through a lot of transfer news and a lot of headlines every 7 days at 5 o'clock on a Monday. Do tune in. Please like the video. Currently on 283 subscribers. Really want to get to 300 by the start of the next season. Please do hit the thumbs up below and leave a comment on the video as well. It really helps the algorithm push the video further to get the channel more exposure, and that's really important for growth. But get straight into it, and unfortunately this week we have to start with a bit of a negative one. The news that broke over the weekend: Tosin Adarabioyo was one of Newcastle's main early targets on a free transfer from Fulham. The verbal agreement with Chelsea is set to sign at Stamford Bridge this week after a medical with a long-term deal in the offing. It's a real shame for Newcastle. Dealt with Adarabioyo for a long time. He's had talks with Eddie Howe. He's impressed with the project. He liked the idea of, like the ambition and the idea of coming to Newcastle. Wants to play regularly, which is what I think a lot of fans are finding a little bit difficult to understand about his move to Chelsea, given that there's a hefty amount of competition there with the likes of Benoit Badiashile, Levi Colwill, Axel Disasi, Wesley Fofana to come back, Trevor Chalobah in place as well. So there's lots of options for Enzo Maresca, who isn't even appointed yet, to choose from. Even without Toss, it's a move to a London club. He doesn't have to up sticks. The wage packet, by all accounts, is much bigger at Chelsea as well. And obviously, European football is on offer there, as it isn't at Newcastle because of the FA Cup final, as we all know. So this is a big blow for Newcastle, I think. And a lot of fans, I can understand why, are saying that it isn't that Newcastle can just move on. But I think it's very rare that you can get a player of this quality on a free transfer in a position and the profile of a player that you need. And Newcastle need a right-sided centre-back with athleticism, with physicality, with pace, with a presence, take the defence to the next level. That was what's been lacking over the last couple of years, and it was really exposed at times last season. They wanted a pacey centre-back last summer, didn't move for one, and that need became even more prominent this season. So a massive shame that they appear to have missed out on this free transfer. If they are to strengthen a centre-back in that profile, now they'll have to go into the market and spend a hefty chunk of what is not the biggest transfer kitty this summer because of FFP and PSR and everything. I don't know the exact amount that Newcastle can spend. I think they can spend a decent amount, but certainly not be welcome that they'll have to spend 35, 40 million on a centre-back if they really want to improve that area now. The other deal, obviously, that's been sort of put in tandem with this Tosin deal is Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth. That one appears to be as fine as it was. That those talks have been going on longer, since February. He seems to be very keen to reunite with Eddie Howe. That deal should move along this week. It can't be announced or anything because the window doesn't open until the 14th of June, and his Bournemouth contract doesn't expire to the 30th of June. So the fact that it's gone quiet is probably good news, because there's not really any rumours or anything that something similar that's happened with Tosin is going to happen with Kelly. Obviously, we've got to learn from something from this week, that nothing is done until it's done. But I think Kelly is a lot further on than Tosin ever was, and yeah, I think Kelly will sign. But it's a massive blow to miss out on Tosin Adarabioyo, because it's very rare that you get a player that perfect in terms of profile and position on a free transfer. Newcastle now have to go back to the drawing board, maybe look at the old list that they drew up last year of the likes of Edmund Tapsoba, Jean-Claire Todibo. There's a very clear profile of centre-back on that list, and maybe they'll have to have a look at that going into the summer now after this Adarabioyo news. Hopefully be a lot more positive when looking for a right winger. That is Newcastle's main priority this season, because Miguel Almiron is likely to leave. I think I mentioned this last week, but he is expected to leave the club this summer. He rejected advances from a Saudi club, Al Shabab, in January. He doesn't want to move to Saudi Arabia, but I think the message is clear to him and from his camp that if the right offer comes along, and there's interest from Spain and links to Ipswich Town, obviously newly promoted in the Premier League as well, then he'll listen to those offers. Newcastle will have to go out for a right midfielder. That was obviously something, again, last summer that they were linked with, that they looked at. They were a lot more opportunistic last summer, as we have discussed on this channel many times. I think they'll be, at the moment, I think there'll be a lot more experience in the exact positions and looking to strengthen specific positions this summer than they were last year. And that means right midfielder. And there's a few names out there that they've looked at and are very, very keen on. One of those names is Pedro Neto from Wolves, 24 years old, Portugal winger, fantastic player, as Newcastle fans are well aware of. Last season at Molineux, he was really, really good against Newcastle. He almost turned the game on its head, and if he hadn't come off with a hamstring problem, which really sums the issue up with him, really, then Wolves probably would have won that game. He's absolutely phenomenal player. His output's excellent. He's got Premier League experience, as I said, 24 years old, and Wolves are likely to do a deal with him. But for him this summer, it feels like it might be the time for him to move on. Arsenal have been keen in the past. Rightly, they'll look for a hefty fee, and I think that'll be in excess of 50 to 60 million pounds. And is that something that Newcastle want to pay for a player who's got injury problems, given the countless problems that they had in that department last season? It's debatable, and I think this is someone that they definitely like. He's someone who's the right mould. He's direct. He can take the player on. He's really intelligent, good passing range as well. Great technique. I think he's an excellent player, and I think somebody, a lot similar sort of boat to Michael Elise, where if he is available, Newcastle will definitely be interested in doing a deal. It's just whether that deal suits Newcastle, and I have my doubts about that because of his injury record, and that whether it's worth looking at buying somebody for 60 million pounds when they can't be guaranteed to be fit, and especially considering all the problems that injuries caused Newcastle last season. So I think this one's one to watch, but I'm not convinced that it'll move fast. Another Premier League name linked as well. Brentford's Brian Mbeumo. Now this one is a little bit more interesting because his price won't be as high. I think 45 million, and he's vocally come out in the French press last week to say that he is keen on a move. Liverpool have been linked. Newcastle are linked as well. He, for me, would be a really good fit. Premier League experience, 9 goals in a struggling Brentford side last season. Plays off the right, really good at making runs in behind, energetic, can play through the middle as well, which will be crucial because of the doubts over Callum Wilson's future. I think this one, again, is one to watch. But the issue with this one is because Brentford are likely to sell Ivan Toney this summer, he's obviously made plenty of noises over his future. I think that Brentford are going to really try the hardest to keep Mbeumo if they possibly can. 24 though, again, ideal age, ideal profile of player, Premier League experience, ready for that step up. I think this one will be a real one to watch if it was possible. Again, though, it's really going to be key to see whether Newcastle can pull this one off and whether Brentford are interested in doing a deal. I think he'll be cheaper than Pedro Neto, for example, or Michael Elise, who will both be at the high end of what Newcastle have paid for players in the past, the likes of Isak at £63 million. It'd probably be more than that to get either one of those in reality. Certainly at this point in time, it feels like that. But I think Mbeumo, if there is a deal to be done, it'll be slightly cheaper. But again, Brentford's stance on this, given that they're likely to sell Toney this summer, might be quite difficult. And Newcastle aren't one to get into bidding wars, and Newcastle aren't one to get bogged down by negotiations too strongly. They like to get the deals done quickly and behind closed doors. Brentford might push up a hard bargain this summer, and that might be quite difficult for Newcastle to deal with. So again, one to watch, but I think, and certainly on the list. But Mbeumo is by no means a guarantee to be joining Newcastle. The name that I think is interesting to watch again is Johan Bakayoko. Belgium and PSV wing has been in superb form this season. I think he's ready for a move himself. Again, similar sort of price point to Mbeumo, 40 million they'll probably look for. If you look at previous Dutch transfers, as most recently Cody Gakpo when he went to Liverpool, at the sort of peak of his value, if you like, he'd just come off the World Cup having scored 3 goals for Holland. He'd been in superb form for PSV for a couple of years, and he went for 37 million in January. So I think Newcastle, if they wanted Johan Bakayoko, and again, he's somebody that is extensively watched across Europe. He's watched by Newcastle, but watched by plenty of other clubs, both at home and abroad. There could be a deal done for this one, but again, the Euros are going to be key here with his value, whether he impresses them. After the breakup of the golden generation for Belgium, he's one of the emerging stars, sort of taking on the mantle of an Eden Hazard. There's a lot of pressure on him. There'll be a lot of eyes on him. Newcastle have been linked in the past. They've watched him. I think this is a really interesting player that I'm a huge fan of. A lot of doubts over whether players can adjust from Dutch football into the Premier League. That's obviously become a bit of a thing, but I think he's ready for a step up, and it'd be he's very physically imposing. He's very quick. He's skillful. He's very, very ideal for the way Newcastle play as well. The thing to take from this week's show is that right midfield is the priority after the disappointment of Tosin Adarabioyo, but Newcastle will likely have to go back into the market for another centre-back. Fabian Schär is going to be 33 next season. Sven Botman's obviously injured. Jamal Lascelles is injured. There needs to be more defensive reinforcements, but particularly there needs to be more pace and physicality at the back as well, and that costs. So Newcastle have suffered a bit of a blow when it comes to missing out on Tosin Adarabioyo. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do continue to like, share, and subscribe. As I say, you'll be watching this at 5 o'clock. I'm currently filming this in the morning because as you're watching this, I'll be travelling to St James's Park for England against Bosnia. Really looking forward to seeing Kieran Trippier captain the side tonight as well. Keep an eye on the channel for a video from pitch side at St James's. Thank you very much, and yeah, I'll catch you later.